What's up everyone, this is Cher talking, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'll be making a full review for the Romancing Festival Leon banner. That brings Summer Leon, a damage dealer that has 5 different chase attacks on turn 1. That's right, he loads all of his past bullets and can use on turn 1 up to turn 10. After that he loses, so he is someone that can be used for fast strategies and for grind. There is Macha, that is a mage damage dealer that can apply a skill and passive that increases everyone's damage for magical attacks and decreases everyone's damage for skill attacks, you and the enemies. She can be used for Mage Squads in the right scenarios. Then there is Judie, a fire and shadow damage dealer that can even debuff and has multiple chase attacks. Let's go straight to rs.xyz websites. Well, let's start out with Leon. He gives a name to the banner. He's a damage dealer with 123% dexterity, good enough. Endurance is on 80 and will is on 90. Will being higher is always good to protect from ailments. He still has intelligence being on 93% that will work in some bosses but not all of them. And his agility is kinda bad, just 83%, meaning that he won't be the first attacker of the party. This can lead into some problems, but it can also be actually good depending on who else you're bringing to the fight. He does have a little more love than charisma because he can be a healer, but you only use him as a healer if you don't have anyone else to use after 10 turns. He starts the fight with 30% increase in damage and loses 3 LP because of this passive that he gives himself 10 times per battle. It's called Full Revolver, and Full Revolver will load all of his bullets from the past. One that has Wind Chaser, Frozen Chaser as well. Those 2 bullets have blunt damage at least, one has slash damage, the other one has cold damage. Both will give you 1 BP, so that's important to note that he gets 2 extra BP from this. Then there is Anti-Material Shot, that has triple S power. It's much stronger than just D power, and it has a chance to debuff the enemy's endurance by 20% because this is rank 1. And then Ice Chaser will apply Guard Down, decreasing the defense of the enemy by 12%, lasts for 2 turns but does not stack with itself. And then there is Attack Chaser that increases his attack by 15%, only lasts for that particular turn. So, 2 attacks have D power, one has E, the other has C, and there is a triple S power attack here. That's quite a lot, to be honest. A lot of damage from turn 1. You don't know which bullet will be used in which order, meaning that if you get Anti-Material Shot first, that's nice because it will debuff the enemy if you have high enough intelligence, or if you get Attack Chaser first, it will be nice as well because it will increase your damage. And Guard Down helps, but not as much as the others. So, at least we get 5 chase attacks and 2 extra BP. Moving back, well, we start by getting 20% damage increase in every turn for 5 turns, meaning that we get another 100% damage increase. By the end of a turn, Leon also gets 2 BP. Accounting for the 2 bullets that increases BP, he gets 7 per turn. So, we also have Intrinsic Gun 4, that increases damage potential by 20%. So, when everything is considered, by turn 5 he has 150% damage increase. He reduces damage taken by 40% when resisting and has 37% chance to evade when resisting. Then skill number 1 is actually good. It's a C power attack with just 1 BP cost that has a chance to debuff the enemy's STR by 15% on max level. For the cost, this is amazing, but you don't usually want to use such a weak attack as an opener unless you really need this STR debuff. But since his agility is not that great, I don't think you'll be using this too much, especially now when bosses will remove their debuffs by the end of turn most of the time. Second skill is a clean spell, Healing Breeze, can be used 5 times per battle, and, well, does not sacrifice LP, recovers the user HP, gives 1 BP. It's strong, but why would you use him as a healer? Maybe only after 10 turns, and by that moment, if Leon didn't defeat the boss, he's probably wasting your time. The third one is Aquarium String. That's a single target attack with blunt and cold, and when the attack hits, grants the target defense down. It's good that it's defense down and not guard down. That would decrease the defense of the enemy by 25% on max level. Only lasts for that turn, but it's a triple S attack with 9 BP cost. That means that it's not that pricey, and gun attacks are super strong when using triple S weapon. And since he will apply this defense down, this is a guarantee, all of the other bullets will do more damage. And since this is also a cold attack, we could consider Leon to be a strong cold damage dealer, since the opener will be cold, and 2 of his bullets will also be cold, those being Frozen Chaser and Ice Chaser. So let's say that you want to use Leon to clear some challenges. Doesn't matter if the enemies are weak to Leon or not. You will just keep attacking with Aquarium String as long as you have enough BP. If you don't, you use Arms Snipe. It will save you some BP, and then you keep using Aquarium String for the remainder of the fight. Damage will be very high. You can say that he works similar to Arpina and UniverSe style without having to use Overdrive, and he scales well with other companions since he will be decreasing the enemy defense, and that will increase the damage of the other characters as well. But after 10 turns, this is over. In some fights where we have multiple forms like Firebringer, this may not be as useful because they last usually 15 turns at least, and Leon will not be so strong. But what can you do to improve Leon's damage? Well, let's say that you want him to do more damage in some other turns. You could inherit, for example, Frozen Revolver. Yes, you lose 2 turns, but then on turn 3 and beyond, you will have 2 extra bullets. Of course, it's just the power, but the Frozen Chaser attack is nice because it has a 25% chance to grant the user damage block. With 3 of these bullets, well, you have good chances of having at least 1 damage block here and there. Nice, and it makes Leon even better as a ice damage dealer. You can also just inherit from his newest style, the Anti-Material Shot from Convert Weapon. Why is it that good? Because now you have 2 SSS power attacks via chase, and you can debuff the endurance 2 times as well. Like I said, you don't know which order the bullets will be used, but if the enemy does not cleanse the endurance debuff, your other characters will do more damage. Sometimes this can be a curse as well, because if you debuff the enemy too much, it triggers the fire weakness. And, well, Anti-Material Shot can trigger the fire weakness. Okay, that's good for blunt damage. And you only waste 1 turn, while loading the Frozen Revolver will waste 2 turns. And then you are left with just 8 turns of damage. And with the Convert Weapon and Anti-Material Shot, you are left with 9 turns. You still don't need any, you can just use Leon as he is for 10 turns of damage, and damage will be nice. But depending on if you want to switch to cold performance, you can go for just that 2 loads of Frozen Revolver. If you want full blunt, Convert Weapon. I don't really recommend going for Slash by just using Wind Revolver, because we already have Kihachi, we have Arpina, and we have other slash damage dealers. But if you want, that still gives you back 2 extra BP, so that you will always be using at least skill number 3 Aquarium String. Just like with Frozen Revolver, that also gives him 2 extra BP. But he always has 9. But sometimes we run characters that already give BP to Leon, so that is not really needed. Leon is very strong, like I said. He competes with our strongest nukers right now, that being Kihachi. But Kihachi really needs the enemy to be weak to either Slash, and sometimes Cold, and Lightning can also work, but it's more about Slash. And if the enemy is not weak to these elements, it barely works. We also have Arpina, that is super strong, and she gets into overdrive by use of her skill number 2, but she's also another character that works for 10 turns. They are pretty similar, I would say, with Arpina doing more by herself and Leon doing more by party setup, since he will apply defense down, guard down, everyone else will do more damage. Leon is also easier to use most of the time, but if you are running Arpina, she will always attack before the enemy since she is on overdrive. See, those are usually the most powerful units in the game right now. Leon is easy to use since he does not need inheritance and deserves an OP grade in the tier list since he works for fights versus bosses, but also as a very strong grinder, although a pretty slow one. He will solo all stages that have just 1 enemy. Now, if you have the latest versions of Leon, do you still need this one? Yeah, use it for different settings. The latest one is used to buff Will, because this buffs Will and Dexterity every turn, and the third one is now fully replaced unless the fight lasts for more than 10 turns and you want a good start. They don't exactly replace each other, but the newest one is better most of the time anyway, unless we are talking about very, very long fights. Leon has another style on JP, and this one can debuff Agility instead of STR. He has a skill that gives him 50% increase in damage versus weak targets, and grant him a new chase, call it Storm Chaser. He also gets 4 Wind Chasers by start of turn, but loses 3 LP because of this. And he can even load Wind Chaser via Inheritance for a total of 6 Wind Chasers and this Storm Chaser, meaning 7 follow-up attacks. And he opens with this second skill that already applies War Down. That means that all chase attacks will do more damage. So he gets ready by turn 4. You just use Wind Chaser on turn 1. On turn 2, on turn 3, you are already doing very good damage. And from turn 4 onwards, you are ready. And, well, this guy here is mostly made for Slash, but also works for Blunt just fine. And does not need any inheritance. The first Leon is good enough for him. Now let's talk about Macha. She has 125% intelligence, that's a good value. 105% will, very good one as well. Her agility could be better with just 98%, but she does have 90% endurance, so she's a very resistant mage. She carries both fire and nerf spells, and she needs a special weapon that you can forge now for triple S upgrade. Moving on start of a fight, she grants all surviving allies, but also all enemies Mischief Magic Domain. Mischief Magic Domain is a very interesting passive that will increase all spell attacks by 75%. And reduce all skill damage by 25%. That's right. And that is exactly what you saw in the past with Hardy. Remember Hardy? Well, Hardy did the same with Fair and Square, but for different setups. He was increasing direct damage by 75% and reducing indirect damage by 25%. That's a little different. Indirect damage will include all skills that are indirect, but also spells. And Hardy was increasing direct attacks, so when fighting versus mages, this would work because you will just do more damage and receive less. Now in the case of Macha, this is very different actually. In the case of Macha, she wants to fight physical types while using parties made of mages. Physical attackers will use skills, but some of them will still have magic attacks. Be careful, because if they do, they will do much more damage with their magical attacks. It depends on their choice of skills. But that's pretty interesting, and if used on the right setups, it can be a game changer. On the start of a turn, she also gets 5 BP, max of 2 times per battle. This is actually made for her to become a better farmer, but can also help her in using SaGa Magical Train, but I'll talk more about that later. She gets 20% heat up on start of each turn, getting 100% by turn 5. By the end of a turn, she also gets 2 BP. Then, with Staff Finesse, she gets 30% increase in damage at all times and reduces damage taken by 30%. So, final potential is 130% by turn 5, but you still get that 75%. That means that you get 205% just for Macha, but 75% for all other mage attackers. But now skill number 1, Cosmic Circle. It's a fast support that will grant Mischief Magic Domain for another 5 turns. So you are doubling down the effects of this. It can be very interesting if you are using mages to fight physical type of enemies, but use it on the right scenarios or you're going to die. You are going to increase the damage of your mage attackers, but decrease the potential of any skill attacker. Okay, skill 2, Rock Splitters. It's an AoE blunt attack, and it's based on nerf, that before attacking buffs all surviving allies' intelligence by 25%, including herself, and then launches an attack that would feel more like a C-power attack. Not too strong, it's just so that you can use her when fighting versus multiple enemies and you can decide to buff your Mage Squad, because that's what you're using, right? You can bring the Mystic Line formation for even better damage. You can sacrifice Will that you lose by not using Rising Phoenix EX. Then there is Blaze Surfing, and that's a fast AoE attack with heat damage and just a power. When you look on this, it is not interesting by itself. The MVP for a power attack, that's not that great, but it's fast, and she gets 2 extra 5 BP, so she will have enough BP to use this attack 3 times in a row if you want to do so. But for free quests, using this 2 times is more than enough. And I just proved it by getting her maxed with 2 promotions she can solo stages where we have multiple enemies with 2 hits, but just barely. I don't think she's gonna work for too much time. Now, she can use it for farming with Blaze Surfing, and for boss fights, you wanna use Cosmic Circle right before you nuke. But you can also use her for something else, that is inheriting SaGa Magical Train. Remember this attack, it's Earth-based, so you need the Earth element in your staff. It grants the enemy Sundered for 2 turns. Sundered will apply defense down for 1 turn, but you can cast SaGa Magical Train twice in a row. Sadly, she will only work well with other mage attackers. You can use Judie with her, you can also use Rock Bouquet that has multi-chase attacks, and any other that attacks multiple times so that you can reapply more and more defense downs, and you can even apply 2 times if you have used SaGa Magical Train one after another. Besides this, you could still choose to use her as a debuffer if you got her latest style that debuffs agility and even remove agility buffs, and the buff value is 20% instead of 15, that's good. And she also has an intelligence debuff that's much better, that debuffs 20% and also removes all intelligence buffs from the target. So, those are very interesting inheritances, I believe. And you could still use her as a healer or a reviver, but I don't think she's that useful for these things. There is also the tower. This skill here is awesome because even through its earth-based, it is fast, and it can debuff the enemy intelligence by 30%. It's AoE as well, so the power, there's nothing, because we are not here for damage. And the MVP can seem a little too costly, but she can still use this 3 times in a row. And if you have Sheree in the party, she gets extra BP and keep using this. We got many debuffers recently that can debuff, I don't know, sometimes 20%, sometimes 25%, but 30% via inheritance. And every turn if you have VP batteries. That can save you from some complicated scenarios where the enemies have way too much intelligence. But your intelligence needs to be high. In her case, 125 is high enough. There is also Rock Stings from her UDX style. That's an AoE attack that can stun with very cheap cost. And if you don't have any premium style, you can inherit Flame Hammer from her S1. That's free and you can find in the Romancing shop. That can debuff intelligence and STR by 15% when you fully upgrade. So there is some more utility for Macha anyway. So Macha is good, as she is, but a little too gimmick. She's a specialist for Mage Squad in fighting versus skill-based enemies. She can also be used to improve the damage of Mage Squads by using SaGa Magical Train after she already applied the passive, or she can use it as a full debuffer for either AoE, intelligence, or single target agility or intelligence, but all of this needs inheritance. So if you are a Macha lover and you have been getting her newest styles, this Macha is pretty great, and she deserves a triple S grade in the tier list. Macha has another style on JP, and this one is a damage dealer. She can attack 3 times in a row. She has a 5-hit attack that can also be used on overdrive. She increases damage to the party. She always chases with Crimson Flare and always chases again with the 5-hit attack on overdrive. Pretty strong unit and changes her role completely when you get her next style. The last character is Judie, and we have another damage dealer here. 124% intelligence and 100% agility. A damage dealer that will go fast. Her endurance is 70%, she's a little too fragile versus physical attacks, but she has 105% will, so from physical, it may hurt, but for magical, we won't. All the other styles are just average. She decreases damage taken at all times by 30%, and when she lands an attack, she always chases with Dark Flare on rank 1. Dark Flare is a single target attack with Shadow and Heat and triple S power. There is just one problem with Judie. Just like Macha, she's a dual elemental attacker, and right now we don't have a triple S staff with those elements. We have to use a double S, one that you can grind on request, or you can forge. But eventually we will get a triple S weapon for Judie as well. Then, when landing an attack, she recovers HP by around 250, recovers also 1 BP, gives herself an attack boost that will increase the damage by 10%, lasts for 2 turns, can stack. She also buffs her own intelligence by 5%. Why just 5%? But she can attack multiple times, this will stack. Then she increases damage by 30% and has a 25% chance to evade enemies' attacks. Okay, so only one damage passive, only one damage reduction passive, but has a lot of effects when attacking. Skill number 1 is Fire Arrows, and it's a D power 0 BP skill, to use when you don't have BP. Now, the second skill, Violet Knight, is awesome. It's a full AoE attack with C power that can debuff the enemy intelligence by 15%. Okay, but then, before attacking, she casts Dual Cast Flutch that will allow you to just straight out chase with this skill called Flutch. It's an AoE shadow attack that can debuff the enemy's STR by 10% because it's rank 1. Okay, but it's AoE. You can debuff intelligence and STR with just Violet Knight. You will still always chase with Dark Flare. So, it's 3 hits. 3 hits means you get 3 BP, 3 times healed, 3 times attack boost, and 3 times intelligence boost as well. Right from the start, and those things will keep stacking. But you need 10 BP, you just got back 6. You don't have enough, right? Okay, but that's where things can change. You can use Judie, for example, on Saruin squad. Current Saruin is not as useful anymore. I think he is a little hard to use versus boss fights, but people still do use him. Remember that he gives this passive that increases 50% for shadow damage to everyone in the squad, but also 1 BP on shadow attacks. That's right. So let's say that you use Judie on Saruin squad. Well, in that case, Judie will get 1 extra BP by each of these attacks. So, instead of 3, she gets 6 and 9 by the end of a turn, meaning that she got 9. It's almost as much as 10. So sometimes you may not have enough, but most of the time you have. If you have someone in the party that gives 1 extra BP, well, Judie will keep using Violet Knight. But there is a secret here. When you use Violet Knight, this Dual Cast Flutch lasts for 3 turns, meaning that if in the next turn you use another Violet Knight, you will be using Flutch twice. And then, if you use it on the other turn, you'll be using Flutch thrice. So, eventually, on turn 3, manage to use Violet Knight every single turn. She will attack with that first hit, trying to debuff the enemy intelligence by 15%. And then with Flutch, she will then try to debuff the enemy STR by 10% each hit. That can lead into 30% STR debuff. That's crazy for AoE. But that's only if you manage to attack every single turn with Violet Knight. That's hard to use unless you have either a Saruin or Shirei. Shirei will also help me out. Okay, but in fights where the enemy only cleanses debuffs by the end of a turn, that can be pretty amazing. 30% STR debuff reduces damage by quite a lot. Nice. It is worth to say that when using Violet Knight with Saruin, you will actually get back 9 BP. Since you will be attacking first, then you'll be chasing with Flutch, and then you will attack again with Dark Flare. That means you get 6 BP from all the attacks, and then you get 3 by the end of a turn. So that means that you use it 10, got back 9. In the next turn, when you attack again, you actually get back 11, because then you will use Flutch twice, and then on turn 3, you get back 13. If you don't have BP batteries, then your Judie will be cycling between Violet Knight, Fire Arrows, Violet Knight, Fire Arrows. You have just 2 casts of Flutch instead of 3. That reduces her potential by quite a lot. Then we have some Flare Burst. This is a single target attack with heat damage, and before attacking she casts herself Dual Cast Fireball. That's similar to Flutch, but with the difference that Fireball has D power instead of E, but no additional effect, sadly. What you'll be doing here is doing more damage versus single target and switching the elements. It's still 10 BP to open, and she gets 1 chase. If you manage to use some Flare Burst again on the second turn, you get 2 chases, and on the third turn, you get 3 chases. Since this lasts for 3 turns, 3 chases is the most that you can get. But now, she has a different partner, and that one will be Firebringer. Yes, Firebringer just got released, and if you got the guy, he gives everyone's 1 BP when they are using heat attacks. So she gets 9 BP on turn 1 if you are using Firebringer. She will get 11 BP on turn 2, and then 13 BP on turn 3. You manage to use skill number 3 every single turn. And that from that moment onwards, she will never run out of BP. With Shirei, she still doesn't run out of BP, but Firebringer is also a strong debuffer, and you can use him to debuff and help her to do damage, because when you are using her fire attacks, she's just a damage dealer. But still a good one. Remember that you are attacking with double S power, then you have a triple S power chase, and 3 D power attacks. You could say that this is similar to what you were doing with Leon in the past, but with the difference that Judie keeps getting bigger damage via attack boost and intelligence buffs. So, stronger than Leon for elements that don't have as much competition. We do have a very strong damage dealer for Shadow, that is Rock Bouquet. And for Fire, we now have Firebringer, but I don't think there's so much competition on this regard. Hence why she's a little easier to use, but if you are running a full Fire squad, she's very easy to use together with. And when you are running a full Fire squad, she's very easy to use with Firebringer, people like Polka, Aspergal, that will help her a lot. Especially when you are running Aspergal on a fight where the enemy uses spells, because remember that if you use Psychic Hunt, you get extra BP when you are attacked by spells, and if you use her Witch Trick from the Halloween style, well, you still have the chance to chase with that Psychic Hunt to get some extra BP. But in the end, Judie doesn't really need to be used together with Firebringer or Shadowing. Like I said, just Shirei will be good enough. Shirei will give her 10 BP, and when she gets to turn 3, you just keep recovering enough to keep using her skill all the time. And Shirei is someone that helps a lot of other characters in the party, so at least one of those 3 characters will help her a lot. So, Judie can also inherit Cycle Noise if you want. The plus version can debuff intelligence and will by 20%. And I don't think this is so useful. It has lower cost and it will not keep chasing. So why? Unless you really need desperately to debuff intelligence by 20% instead of 15, you should not care about this. And the other inheritance make no sense. There is no future version of Judie, and because of her damage and debuff, I believe that she deserves an OP grade as well, and is just as good as Leon. But she has longer legs, since Leon has more competition as a damage dealer, and Judie offers debuffs, and multi-purpose characters will live longer. With all that said, is this banner worth pulling for? In my opinion, yes. If you pull it on the other banner and you already got Enya, she's the best of that banner, and she is better than Judie and Leon, since she will be useful for more. But after that, if you got Enya, drop the banner, and I do believe that any of these 3 characters do have more utility than the other banners partners from Enya's banner. Since Goddess, although a damage dealer, will face a lot of competition, and Orlette, although a good debuffer, can be replaced by Aspergal in almost all scenarios. And for Leon, you get good damage for 10 turns, you get a farmer for any stage that has only one enemy. Macha increases damage potential for magical squads. It's not as important, it's just an extra in a character made for specific squads. And Judie is a damage dealer that can debuff, and those will live longer than pure damage dealers. Well, I will be giving this banner Silver Plus award, the same one I gave to Enya, with the idea that here we have 3 useful units, and none are better than Enya. But Enya is the best one, but her banner companions are not as good. I pulled in and got all those 3, we'll be showcasing them in the future, but that's all my opinion. What is yours? Please say here in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, please subscribe if you haven't. If you want to support the channel, we have links on the description. I hope to see you soon in the next one. Bye.